VISATI-NIPATA. Source. Adapted from archaic translation by W.H.D. Rouse. Jataka number 497. Mātaṅga-Jātaka. From where you come, etc. This story the master told while living in Jetavana monastery, about the king Adena. At that time, the Reverend Pindola Bharadvaja passing from Jetavana monastery through the air, used generally to pass the heat of the day in King Adena's park at Kosambi. The elder monk, we are told, had in a former existence been king, and for a long time had enjoyed glory in that very park with his group of attendants. By virtue of the good then by him performed, he used to sit there in the heat of the day, enjoying the bliss of attainment which was its fruit. One day he was in that place, and sitting under a sal tree in full flower, when Adena came into the park with a large number of followers. For 7 days he had been drinking deep, and he wished to enjoy in the park. He lay down on the royal seat in the arms of one of his women, and being foxed soon fell asleep. Then the women who sat singing around threw down their instruments of music, and wandered about the garden gathering flowers and fruit. In due course of time they saw the elder monk, and came up, and saluting him sat down. The elder monk sat where he was and gave discourse to them. The other woman by shifting her arms awoke the king, who said, "Where are those dullards gone?" She replied, "They are sitting in a ring round an ascetic." The king grew angry, and went to the elder monk, abusing and insulting. Out on it, "I'll have the fellow devoured by red ants." So in rage he caused a basket full of red ants to be broken over the elder monk's body. But the elder monk rose up in the air, and admonished the king. Then to Jetavana monastery he went, and descended at the gateway of the perfumed chamber. "From where have you come?" asked the Tathagata, and he told him the fact. "Bharadvaja," said he, "this is not the first time Adena has done disrespect to a religious man, but he did the same before." Then at the elder monk's request, he told a story of the past. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king of Benares, the great being was born outside the city, as a Chandala's son, and they gave him the name of Matanga, the elephant. Afterwards he attained wisdom, and his fame was blown abroad as the wise Matanga. Now at that time one dittha-mangalika, daughter of a Benares merchant, every month or 2 used to come and frolic her in the park with a crowd of companions. One day, the great being had gone to town on some business, and as he was entering the gate met dittha-mangalika. He stepped aside, and stood quite still. From behind her curtain dittha-mangalika saw him, and asked, "Who is that?" "A Chandala, my lady." "Bah," says she, "I have seen something that brings bad luck," and washing her eyes with scented water she turned back. The people with her cried out, "Ah, nasty outcast, you have lost his free food and liquor today." In rage they had beaten Matanga the wise with hands and feet, and made him senseless, and went away. After a while he recovered consciousness, and thought, "The crowd around dittha-mangalika beat me for no reason, an innocent man. I will not budge till I get her, not a moment before." With this resolve, he went and lay down at the door of her father's house. When they asked him why he lay there, his reply was, "All I want is dittha-mangalika." One day passed, then a second, a third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. The resolve of the Buddhas is immovable. Therefore on the 7th day they brought out the girl and gave her to him. Then she said, "Rise up, Master, and let us go to your house." But he said, "Lady, I have been hit hard by your people, I am weak, take me up on your back and carry me." So she did, and in full view of the citizens went on from the city to the Chandala settlement. There for a few days the great being kept her, without doing wrong in any way the rules of caste. Then he thought, only by renouncing the world, and in no other way, shall I be able to show this lady the highest honor and give her the best gifts. So he said to her, Lady, if I fetch nothing out of the forest, we cannot live. I will go into the forest. Wait till I return, but do not worry. He laid injunctions upon the household not to neglect her, and went into the forest, and embraced the life of a religious, with all diligence. So that in 7 days he developed the 8 attainments and the 5 supernatural faculties. Then he thought, now I shall be able to protect dittha-mangalika. By his supernatural power he went back, and descended at the gate of the Chandala village, from where he proceeded to the door of dittha-mangalika's house. She, when she heard of his return, came out, and began to weep, saying, Why have you deserted me, master, and become an ascetic? He said, Never mind, lady, now I will make you more glorious than your former glory. Will you be able to say in the midst of the people just this? My husband is not Mātaṅga, but the great Brahma. Yes, master, I can say it. Very well, when they ask you where is your husband, you must reply, he is gone to Brahma's heaven. If they ask, when he will come back, you must say, in 7 days he will come, breaking the moon's disk when she is at the full. With these words, he went away to Himalaya. Now dittha-mangalika said what she had been told here and there in Benares, amidst a great crowd. The people believed, saying, he is great Brahma, and therefore does not visit dittha-mangalika, but thus and thus it will be. On the night of full moon, at the time when the moon stands still in mid-course, the bodhisattva assumed the appearance of Brahma, and amidst a blaze of light which filled all the kingdom of Kasi, and the city of Benares 12 leagues in extent, broke through the moon and came down. Thrice he made circuit above the city of Benares, and received the worship of the great crowd with perfumed garlands and such like, and then turned his face towards the Chandala village. The devotees of Brahma gathered together, and went to the Chandala village. They covered dittha-mangalika's house with white cloths, swept the ground with 4 manner of sweet-smelling things, scattered flowers, burnt incense, spread an awning, prepared a splendid seat, lit a lamp of scented oil, laid at the door sand white and smooth as a silver plate, scattered flowers, put up banners. Before the house thus decorated the great being came down, and entered, and sat a little while on the seat. At that time dittha-mangalika was in her monthly terms. His thumb touched her navel, and she conceived. Then the great being said to her, Lady, you are with child, and you shall bring on a son. You and your son shall receive the highest honor and tribute. The water that washes your feet shall be used by kings for the ceremonial sprinkling throughout all India. The water you bathe in shall be an elixir of immortality. Those who sprinkle it on their heads shall be set free from all disease and shall not know ill luck. They who lay the head on your feet and salute you shall give 1,000 pieces of money. They who stand within your hearing and salute you shall give 100. They who stand in your sight and salute you shall give 1 rupee each. Be vigilant. With this advice, in view of the crowd, he rose up and re-entered the moon. The devotees of Brahma collected, and stood there through the whole night. In the morning they caused her to enter a golden palanquin, and taking it upon their heads, took her into the city. A great assembly came to her, crying aloud, the wife of great Brahma, and did worship with scented garlands and other such things. Those who were allowed to lay the head on her feet and salute her gave a purse of 1,000 pieces. Those who might salute her within hearing gave 100, those who might salute her standing within her sight gave 1 rupee each. Thus they included in their progress the whole city of Benares, 12 leagues in extent, and received a sum of 18 crores. Having thus made the circuit of that city, they brought her to the center of it, and there built a great pavilion, and set curtains about it, and caused her to dwell there amidst much glory and prosperity. Before the pavilion, they began to build 7 great entrance gates, and a palace with 7 stories. Much new merit was set to their account. In that same pavilion, dittha-mangalika brought on a son. On his name day, the Brahmins gathered together, and named him Mandavaya Kamara, the prince of the pavilion, because he was born there. In 10 months the palace was finished. From that time she lived in it, highly honored. And Prince Mandavaya grew up amid great magnificence. When he was 7 or 8 years old, the best teachers in the length and breadth of India gathered together, and they taught him the 3 Vedas. From the age of 16 he provided food for the Brahmins, and 16,000 Brahmins were fed continually. At the 4th embattled gateway the alms were distributed to the Brahmins. Now on one great day of festival they prepared a quantity of rice porridge. And 16,000 Brahmins sat by the 4th embattled gateway and ate this food, accompanied with fresh ghee of a golden yellow, a preparation of honey and lump sugar. And the prince himself, brilliantly adorned with jewels, with golden slippers upon his feet, and a staff of fine gold in his hand, was walking about and giving directions, ghee here, honey here. At that time, the wise Mātaṅga seated in his hermitage in the Himalayas, turned his thoughts to see what news there was of dittha-mangalika's son. Perceiving that he was going in the wrong way, he thought, "Today I will go, and convert the young man, and I will teach him how to give so that the gift shall bring much fruit." He went through the air to Lake Anotatta, and there washed his mouth, and so on. Standing in the district of Manosila, he wore the pair of colored garments, belted his waist belt about him, put on the ragged robe, took his earthen bowl, and went through the air to the 4th gateway, where he descended just by the alms-hall, and stood on one side. Mandavaya, looking this way and that, saw him. "Where do you come from?" cried he. "You ascetic, you of bad birth outcast, a goblin and no man." And he repeated the first stanza. From where you come, in filthy garments dressed, a creature nasty and goblin-like, I vow. A robe of refuse rags across your breast. Unworthy of a gift, say, who are you? The great being listened, then with gentle heart addressed him in the words of the second stanza. The food, O noble sir, is ready set. The people taste, and eat, and drink of it. You know we live on what we chance to get. Rise. Let the low-caste rustic countryman enjoy a bit. Then Mandavaya recited the third stanza. For Brahmins, for my blessing, by my hand. This food is got, the gift of faithful heart. Away! What boots it in my sight to stand? It is not for such as you. Nasty wretch, depart. Upon that the great being repeated a stanza. They sow the seed on high ground and on low, hoping for fruit, and on the marshy plain. In such a faith as this your gifts give. Worthy recipients so you shall obtain. Then Mandavaya repeated a stanza. I know the lands in which I mean to sow. The proper places in this world for seed. Brahmins high-born, that holy scriptures know. These are good ground and fertile fields indeed. Then the great being repeated 2 stanzas. The pride of birth, over-confident self-conceit. drunkenness, hatred, ignorance, and greed. Those in whose hearts these vices find their seat, they all are bad and barren fields for seed. The pride of birth over confidence, self-conceit. Drunkenness, hatred, ignorance, and greed. Those in whose hearts these vices find no seat, they all are good and fertile fields for seed. These words the great being repeated again and again. But the other grew angry, and cried, "The fellow idle chatters overmuch. Where are my porters gone, that they do not throw out the rustic countryman?" Then he repeated a stanza. O Bandakuchi, Upajaya ho. And where is Upajatiya, I say? Punish the fellow, kill the fellow, go. And by the throat hail the nasty rustic countryman away. The men hearing his call, came up running, and saluting him, asked, "What are we to do, my lord? Did you ever see this lowly outcast?" "No, sire, we did not know he had come in at all. Some magician he is doubtless, or cunning rogue." "Well, why do you stand there? What are we to do, my lord?" "Why, strike the fellow's mouth, break his jaw, tear his back with rods and wooden sticks, punish him, take the wretch by the throat, knock him down, away with him out of this place." But the great being, before they could come at him, rose up in the air, and there poised, repeated a stanza. Insult a sage. To swallow blazing fire as much avails. Or bite hard iron, or dig down a mountain with your nails. Having uttered these words, the great being rose high in the air, while the youth and the Brahmins gazed at the sight. Explaining this, the master recited a stanza. So spoke the sage Mātaṅga, champion of truth and right. Then in the air he rose high up before the Brahman's sight. He turned his face to the eastwards, and coming down in a certain street, with intent that his footsteps might be visible, he begged alms near the eastern gate. Then, having collected a quantity of mixed food, he sat him down in a certain hall and began to eat. But the deities of the city came up, finding it intolerable that this king should so speak as to annoy their sage. So the eldest goblin among them seized hold of Mandavaya by the neck, and twisted it, and the others seized the other Brahmins and twisted their necks. But through pity for the Bodhisattva, they did not kill Mandavaya. "He is his son," they said, and only made him suffer. Mandavaya's head was twisted so that it looked backwards over his shoulders. Hands and feet were stiff and stark. His eyes were turned up, as though he were a dead man. There he lay stark. The other Brahmins turned round and round, foaming spit at the mouth. People went and told dittha-mangalika, "Something has happened to your son, my lady." She made all haste there, and seeing him cried, "Oh, what is this?" and recited a stanza. Over the shoulder twisted stands his head. See how he stretches out a helpless arm. White are his eyes as though he were quite dead. Oh, who is it has brought my son this harm? Then the bystanders repeated a stanza, telling her about it. A hermit came, in filthy garments dressed, a creature nasty and goblin-like to see, with robe of refuse rags across his breast. The man who treated thus your son, is he. On hearing this, she thought, no other has the power, the wise Mātaṅga without doubt it must be. But one who is firm, and full of goodwill to all creatures, will never go away and leave all these folk to torment. Now in what direction can he have gone? Which question she put in the following stanza. In what direction went the wise one hence? O noble youths, please answer me this thing. Come, let us make atonement for the offense. Our son to life again that we may bring. The young men answered her in this manner. That wise one, up into the air rose he, like moon in mid-career the 15th day. The sage, established in truth, fair to see, towards the east moreover bent his way. This answer given, she said, I will seek my husband. And asking take with her pitchers of gold and cups of gold, surrounded with a company of waiting women, she went and found the place where his footsteps had touched the ground. These she followed, until she came to him sitting upon a seat, and eating his meal. Approaching she saluted him, and stood still. On seeing her he placed some boiled rice in his bowl. Dittha-mangalika poured water for him from a golden pitcher. He at once washed his hands and rinsed out his mouth. Then she said, Who has done this cruel thing to my son? Repeating this stanza. Over the shoulder twisted stands his head. See how he stretches out a helpless arm. White are his eyes, as though he were quite dead. Oh, who is it has brought my son this harm? The stanzas which follow are said by the two alternately. Goblins there are, whose might and power is great, who follow sages, beautiful to see. They saw your son ill-minded, passionate, and they have treated thus your son for you. Then it is goblins who this thing have done. Do not be angry, O holy man, with me. O brother, full of love towards my son, here for refuge to your feet I flee. Then let me tell you that my mind did hide, nor then nor now a thought of enmity. Your son, through fancied knowledge, drunk with pride, knows not the meaning of the Vedas 3. O brother, truly a man may find, all in a little time his sense quite gone blind. Forgive me my one error, O wise sage. They who are wise are never fierce in rage. The great being, thus pacified by her, replied, Well, I will give you the elixir of immortal life, to make the goblins depart. And he recited this stanza. This fragment of my leftovers take with you. Let the poor fool Mandavaya eat a piece. Your son shall be made whole, restored to you. And so the goblins shall their prey release. When she heard the words of the great being, she held out a golden bowl, saying, Give me the elixir of immortality, my lord. The great being dropped in it some of his rice porridge, and said, First put the half of this into your son's mouth. The rest mix with water in a vessel, and put it in the mouths of the other Brahmins. They shall all be made whole. Then he arose and departed to Himalaya. She carried off the pitcher upon her head, crying, I have the elixir of immortality. Arrived at the house, she first put some of it in her son's mouth. The goblin fled away. The king got up, and brushed off the dust, asking, What is this, mother? You know well enough what you have done. Now see the miserable plight of your dolesman. When he looked at him, he was filled with remorse. Then his mother said, Mandavaya, my dear son, you are a fool, and you do not know how to give so that the gift may bear fruit. Such as these are not fit for your generosity, but only such as are like the wise Mātaṅga. Henceforth give nothing to evil men like these, but give to the virtuous. Then she said, You are a fool, Mandavaya, small of wit. Not knowing when to do good deeds is fit. You gives to those whose sinfulness is great. To evil doers and self-control lacking. Garments of skin, a mass of shaggy hair. Mouth like an ancient well with grass overgrown. And see what ragged clouts the creatures wear. But fools are saved not by such things alone. when passion, hate, and ignorance, afar from men are driven. Give to such calm and holy men. Much fruit for this is given. Therefore from this time forward give not to wicked men like this. But whosoever in this world has reached the 8 attainments, righteous ascetics and Brahmins who have gained the 5 transcendent faculties, Parchaka Buddhas, to these give your gifts. Come my son, let me give these our servants the elixir of immortality, and make them whole. So saying, she had the leftovers of the rice porridge taken, and put in a pitcher of water, and sprinkled over the mouths of the 16,000 Brahmins. Each one got up, and brushed off the dust. Then these Brahmins, having been made to taste the leftovers of a Chandala, were put out of caste by the other Brahmins. In shame they departed from Benares, and went to the kingdom of Medja, where they lived with the king of that country. But Mandavaya remained where he was. At that time there was a Brahmin named Jatimanta, one of the religious, who lived hard by the city of Vetavati on the banks of the river of that name. And he was a man mightily proud of his birth. The great being went there, resolved to humble the man's pride. And he made his dwelling near him, but further upstream. One day, having nibbled at a toothstick, he let it fall into the river, resolving that it should get entangled in Jatimanta's knot of hair. Accordingly, as he was washing in the water, the stick became entangled in his hair. "Curse the brute," said he, when he saw it, "where has this come from, with a pest? I will inquire." He proceeded upstream, and finding the great being, asked him, "What caste are you of?" "I am a Chandala." "Did you drop a toothstick into the river?" "Yes, I did." "You brute! Curse you, nasty outcast, a murrain on you, don't stay here, but go further downstream." But even when he went to live downstream, the toothsticks he dropped floated against the current, and stuck in Jatimanta's hair. "Curse you," said he, "if you stay here, in 7 days your head shall burst into 7 pieces." The great being thought, "If I allow myself to be angry with the man, I shall not be keeping my virtue. But I will find a way to break down his pride." On the 7th day, he prevented the sunrise. All the world was put out. They came to the ascetic Jatimanta, and asked, "Is it you, sir, who prevent the sun from rising?" He said, "That is no doing of mine. But there is a Chandala living by the riverside, and his doing it must be." Then the people came to the great being, and asked him, "Is it you, sir, who keep the sun from rising?" "Yes, friends," said he. "Why?" they asked. "The ascetic who is your favorite insults me, an innocent man. When he comes and falls at my feet to ask for mercy, then I will let the sun go." They went and dragged him along, and threw him down before the great being's feet, and tried to appease him, saying, "Sir, please let the sun go." But he said, "I cannot let him go. If I do so, this man's head will burst into 7 pieces." They said, "Then, sir, what are we to do?" "Bring me a lump of clay." They brought it. "Now place it upon the head of this ascetic, and let the ascetic down into the water." After making these arrangements, he let the sun rise. No sooner was the sun set free, the lump of clay split in 7, and the ascetic plunged under the water. Having thus humbled him, the great being thought, "Where now are those 16,000 Brahmins?" He perceived they were with the king of Medja, and resolved to humble them. By his supernatural power he descended in the neighborhood of the city, and bowl in hand walked the city seeking alms. When the Brahmins descried him, they said, "Let him stay here but a couple of days, and he will leave us without a refuge." In all haste they went to the king, crying, "O mighty king, Here is a juggler and mountebank come. Take him prisoner. The king was ready enough. The great being, with his mess of mixed food, was sitting beside a wall, on a bench, and eating. There, as he was busy eating of the food, the king's messengers found him, and striking him with a sword, killed him. After his death, he was born in the Brahma world. It is said that in this birth, the bodhisattva was a mongoose tamer, and in this servile occupation was put to death. The deities were angry, and poured down upon the whole kingdom of Meja a torrent of hot ashes, and wiped it out from among kingdoms. Therefore it is said, So the whole nation was destroyed of Meja, as they say. For glorious Mātaṅga's death, the kingdom swept away. When the master had ended this discourse, he said, It is not now the first time that Adena has abused religious men, but he did the same before. Then he identified the birth. At that time, Adena was Mandavaya, and I myself was the wise Mātaṅga.